What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to Celestial Compass. I'm Kathy Beal. My site is empowermentunlimited.net, and you can find my forecasts there and also at omtimes.com for every month, every new moon and full moon, and at my site and on my YouTube channel, Professional Aquarian, for every week. And I want to set the stage a bit for what's happening in October before we bring in our guests for this episode. This is a very unusual time. You've perhaps noticed this. In October, on the 11th, Pluto stations direct. And a process that's been going on since 2008 essentially starts to quicken and wrap up of the big changes, revelations, restructuring in our personal foundations, our personal infrastructures, and our collective institutions and infrastructures. Pluto is currently doing a collaboration with the other two outermost planets, Neptune, which is finishing up his time in the sign of Pisces, which he rules, and Uranus, which is in the early stages of finishing up his time in the sign of Taurus. So time periods you could look at would be 2008 on, 2014 on, 2019 on, getting insight, restructuring, thinking of things in a new way, seeing ways that maybe you've been engaged in magical thinking, or that you have been buying into somebody else's view of reality that isn't really lining up with what's going on the ground. As the month goes on, or actually at the middle of the month, Mercury, which rules how we communicate, is going to move into the sign of Scorpio, ruled in modern astrology by Pluto. And there will be a majority of influences in the sky in water. So this means that logic is not going to drive our actions. Logic is not going to drive what we do. Do pay attention to the physical impulses in your body. We are mostly water. And you will find that you will be kind of pulled toward, magnetized toward what is your actions and understanding. And everybody's going to have little X-ray glasses, spidey vision, seeing what's going on under the surface once Mercury gets into Scorpio. The Aries full moon is going to have the impact, I think, of a lunar eclipse, even though it isn't a lunar eclipse. Because it is square that Pluto in Capricorn, highly catalytic. You will be dropping all kinds of booster rockets, flying further and further, and probably jettisoning some goals, jettisoning some people increasingly from your life. That is a big theme. Venus then very quickly moves into Sagittarius, and by the end of the month, it will really feel like everybody wants to just go celebrate Halloween. There's a beautiful link between Mercury and Neptune actually on Halloween. If you're one of those people who likes to think of the veil being thin, you will sense that. Regardless, it should be an extremely lovely time, if only briefly we could all just be in escapism, running around in costumes and eating too much candy. And really, is that such a horrible thing? All right, shifting gears very dramatically, I would like to welcome in today's guests. I am talking with the creators of a new astrology software program and platform. which is called Nechepso. There is a QR code where you can go to the site, and our guests are Patrick Watson, a professional astrologer who began his studies 2 decades ago. He combines modern and ancient software um, in what he does, and that is part of what led him to be part of creating Nechepso. Nick Dagan Best, also known as the Human Ephemeris, a professional astrologer of 30 years, and John Streeker, a self-taught programmer and AI developer with expertise across various fields. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks for having us.
I would like to ask each of you your astrology origin story. How did you come to astrology? Because that's always so fascinating. Patrick, you want to start?
Sure. I was about, I'll give you the more concise version. My mom practiced astrology, and so she had all her books, and I occasionally would read those in my early teens, and then that sort of accelerated. Then I devoured a whole library, and I kind of asked her questions about my chart, and she always had some interesting statements to make about that. And eventually, when I was around 17, I was on MySpace and I was looking around for astrology content, and I found Nick there in 2005 when I was about 17, and I also connected with Chris Brennan, and those sort of became my alongside of the other astrologers I met in that time, kind of became my mentors and guides into learning more about traditional astrology and Hellenistic astrology. And from then, it's been kind of an obsession that took over my life, as it tends to be for those of us who discover this art. And so now, I'm here today as the president of CAPISAR, which is the certification branch of ISAR, the International Society for Astrological Research. I'm part of this team in developing astrological software. So I guess you could say that's, it went somewhere.
Thank you. Nick, how about you?
Yeah, well, it was in fact 30 years ago this coming January that I read my first astrology book. I read it absolutely with the intention of learning just enough about the subject so I could make my friends look ridiculous for believing in it, because I had some friends who were sort of superficially into it, or would talk about it. So yeah, I read this book, and at the back of the book, there was a mini ephemeris. And the thing that struck me was when I realized that the First World War began just as Pluto had made its ingress into Cancer, whereas the Second World War began just as Pluto had made its ingress to Leo. I thought to myself, well, that is really strange that it happens that way. And that led a sort of a trail of discovery for me that, took me across the Rubicon, and whatever other cliches I can introduce to impart that I was a convert. It was my road to Damascus moment, if you will. And from there, I read a lot of books in my native Montreal. And then in 97, I went to New York to start studying with the NCGR, and the internet, it was just sort of becoming a thing, but you couldn't learn astrology on the internet. There was nothing like that. So I had to go to New York City and attend all these different classes with different teachers, which I did for 3 years and took their exams. And from there, started working as an astrologer. I wrote articles for stariq.com before the .com bubble burst in 2001, and did consultations, and just took it from there. And when I met Patrick, I was in my mid 30s, and I was writing a lot about astrology on the internet. And the joke between us is because he was in high school, I was in my 30s, that I was doing something untoward and what have corrupting the youth of America with astrology. Today, Patrick is basically the age I was when we met. So it's of course wonderful to see him and Chris, grow as they have. I needed astrology friends, so I kind of made them up on the internet, and they became real.
That seems
and here we are.
Neptunian. John, how in the world did you find astrology?
Yeah, so I'm not an astrologer like these two, so my story's a lot different from theirs, right?
But he
Back
knows a
in-
lot. He knows
he knows a
astrology.
lot.
Well, yeah. Don't
Well,
sell him short.
Yeah, in 2020. So the way I got into it was actually my wife. She was just kind of talking about like, sun sign sort of stuff. I'm like, whatever, and start reading it. And all of a sudden I start realizing like, wait, this is like the things I'm reading are like happening to me as I'm reading it. And I was like, okay, there might be something to this. Fast forward probably 6 months. I'm a pretty quick study with stuff anyway, but I was already into like, doing secondary progressions and everything else. And I ended up linking up with Rob Hand. I didn't know that Rob Hand was Rob Hand at the time because I didn't know anything about astrology. So I ended up meeting up or linking up with Rob Hand, doing a consultation, and we hit it off. And I ended up doing this every week for about a month and a half straight, I think, and ended up taking all of his courses and everything. So that's who I learned astrology from, is Rob. And also during this time is when I reached out to Patrick, because Rob didn't do zodiacal releasing. He said it was inconsistent. So I needed someone to talk to about this. That's how I met Patrick. And that was probably 3 months after I had met Rob. And since then I've just been, it's one of these things where I didn't think I'd be doing this. I know that. And it just kind of evolved into what it is. And then, one day this idea just kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning, and here we are.
Well, so how did the collaboration come about with the three of you deciding you were going to do this? And as a part of that, what was it specifically you wanted that you couldn't find in other software?
Well, we had to have our parallel stories here, because Nick and I had been doing these informal live streams over the late spring and early summer of 2023. And one of the things that I was trying to accomplish at that time was to visualize the heliacal rising or heliacal setting of a planet as a global event, because it happens at different times based on the latitude that you're at. Now we're talking about the astronomical heliacal rising, not just when Venus is, say, 15 degrees from the sun. And so, and there is no program to do that. So at the time, I was really getting into AI, and I was able to use AI to generate the script to create, to use the Swiss of Hermes to create this. I guess you could say it's my first piece of code, my first piece of sort of independent generated software. And so that kind of made us realize that in order to kind of answer the sort of questions we were hoping to answer, we were going to need an upgrade of some type. And at that time, I was kind of continuing my experimentations with, like, because I'm not actually a coder. I don't know how to code, but with at that time, I was using ChatGPT. I was able to, I suddenly had this Promethean fire that I had no business really playing around with, but I ended up making like a Chrome extension to allow people to use astrological symbols whenever they want really easily. And so I was kind of getting more involved in pairing this idea of coding with astrology, and it was kind of in service of what Nick and I were looking for. The holy grail for us was the ephemeris that you could talk to, and so I developed that as well, a way of being able to use natural language to query the ephemeris and ask a question like, when just to ask, like in a chat box, to say, when did Mars go retrograde in the 20th century? And then it would just tell you. And so I was actually able to kind of accomplish that little bit. And we were hoping this would go a lot further. And now it has dramatically because of no small part due to John and everything he can do. So that's kind of where things were heading into the end of 2023, that Nick and I had been experimenting with this kind of stuff and getting closer into this field and kind of realizing, wow, we really need a new piece of software. And so at that exact same time, completely independently, John enters the picture. Do you want to sort of pick up the story there, John?
Yeah, so it's weird. At the end of 2023, I'm almost having like this sort of moment where I'm like, what am I supposed to do next? I think the reason why I'm thinking this at the time is because, I'm a big proponent of using zodiacal releasing, and I'm looking at it, and it's showing my level 1, my main period from spirit is I'm entering a new period for the first time in my adult life. So showing a new career in 2024, basically. And last summer, I was just like, there's no way. I don't see there's nothing new that I'm doing. Like I was just like kind of perplexed by this. And I ended up actually talking to Patrick, I think in August of last year. And so I'm in the process of trying to figure it out. And then one day it was actually, I know what day it was because it was my son's birthday. It was December 3rd. It just kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning. Literally, I was just like, wow, we should do a software. Wow, this is the thing, isn't it? And then from that point forward, that's what it's been. And like for me, I had done stuff like one of the things that I had made for myself, I made a zodiacal releasing ephemeris where you could actually pull up a date and it would show you, broken down all of the different lots at the same time. So you could have a roundabout way of seeing all of your releasing simultaneously instead of going to one lot and then clicking and going through and all that stuff. So there's a lot of just things like that. I probably have a whole library of spreadsheets worth of stuff because, that's about the only thing that I was able to do at the time. My background's originally in financial programming. I've been doing that since 2018. So I never actually crossed these two worlds together until this. I think I messaged Patrick that day, like, hey, we need to talk. And then we talked the very next day over Zoom, told him the idea. He said, he thought it was a good idea. And then we talked again the day after my birthday, which was December 21st. And then we made an agreement. And then we talked to Nick 5 days later because Patrick said, hey, we need to bring Nick in. 5 days later, the day after Christmas, we ended up talking to Nick and made things official.
So, Nick, your role in this is you're the human ephemeris. What?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've always been a research astrologer alongside anything else I've done professionally as an astrologer. Research astrologer is not a job. Absolutely, no one pays you to do it. But it is the part of astrology that that accounts for everything else. I'm a professional astrologer so that I can be an astrologer. I didn't become an astrologer just so I could give consultations. I give consultations so that my life can be fully immersed in astrology, although I certainly enjoy doing consultations, but it is how I sing for my supper. You might think like if I was a cellist, I might on the weekends play Pachelbel's canon at weddings, but during the week when I was following my passion, I'd be doing some kind of strange avant-garde thing in a basement theater in front of 4 people or something. So there's the thing that you do out of love, and then there's the thing you do to survive. Although the thing you do to survive is really rewarding as well. So with that in mind, I've been using the same astrology software to do my research pretty much since the 20th century. I got my first copy of Solar Fire in 1999. Solar Fire is the existing sort of top shelf astrology software out there, and I love it. I could use it for the next 30 years as well, but there are so many things that it's not capable of doing. Astrology is really this 3-dimensional art ultimately. And what most astrology softwares are limited to is delivering, the nice round circle with the planets on it and the aspects, an accurate calculation, an accurate 2-dimensional calculation. Sure, we have branched off into looking at things like declination and right ascension, but there's so much more to how astrology was done, by any ancient culture that just isn't accounted for in software because it's not aware of space and time the way it really needs to be. So the idea behind using developing the Nechepso and using a trained LLM AI model is the calculations. I mean, like Patrick was hinting at a minute ago with regard to trying to calculate local heliacal risings and settings. We need a software that's really aware of space and local space, global space, and can deliver calculations that are more nuanced, complex and absolutely central to how any ancient culture used astrology. So yeah, in many ways, some astrologers older than me used to complain, or might still complain, and justifiably, that since astrologers no longer draw charts by hand anymore, they're sort of disconnected from the whole process, which I think is, there's a good case for that to be made. I learned how to draw charts to pass exams, not to work as an astrologer. I've always used software. But given that we're reliant on software, we could almost complete that circle if we could allow the software to train us and guide us back into that space where we are really aware of what it is we're looking at, that it's not just this two-dimensional image on a piece of paper, whether it was drawn by us or drawn by a computer, that we get the sense of what that really means.
What does the name Nechepso mean?
Well, it is a name.
Yeah.
Name of an Egyptian pharaoh, a legendary figure who probably existed between the 1st and 2nd century BCE, who is known as often paired with Osiris.
Yeah.
They are considered two potential founders of ancient astrology in the Hellenistic era. Nechepso is often referred to as the king or the compiler. And so we kind of wanted to tip our hat in a way to that ancient origin of astrology in the name of the software. And I will say that it was John who thought of the name Nechepso.
Yes, it was.
It was I just thought it sounded really good too. I'll say that. It's not
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted something to be clever like that, but yeah, I mean, Nechepso is referenced by so many different ancient authors, and they all kind of talk about him in a way like he's like one of the, I guess, founding fathers of astrology. So that was the idea behind it.
It also kind of sounds like Nintendo. It's got a cool ring. It's just got it's in the abstract, it's got a cool ring to it.
Yeah.
And as it happens, John thought of the name, but Patrick and I are absolutely the living incarnations of Nechepso and Osiris.
Right.
So it's all worked out in that way as well.
Yeah, that was really funny. We kind of made that joke before we ever, knew that we were going to call it this. That like, we've often collaborated together, and Nechepso and Osiris, and I'm Patrick. He's Nick Chepso, Osiris. I just thought that was a very funny coincidence. But in any case, so that's what Nechepso means. It's talking about this really, really old person whose work, still is present in what we are doing.
A Greek-speaking Egyptian, if picture yourself, an old scholar in Alexandria is who we're talking about.
So there's a very, very, very much an ancient streak to a lot of the capabilities, but for people who are out there going, I don't know anything about this, the software is also something that could be useful to people who just use modern techniques, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. So one thing that we need to convey now is that we aren't doing like, the software isn't intended for it to be skewed towards Hellenistic or traditional or anything like that. We do have some cool stuff in there that you can't do in Solar Fire and things like that are those techniques. But for us, our main thing is we want this to be exceptional for any school of astrology. We have it already set up, you can use modern rulers, you can do modern decans, you can do whatever you'd like, right? It's there's no, I guess, bias. You can set, if you want to do lots or like the part of fortune or something, all the modern stuff is in there to do it. You don't have to do it the traditional way. We want this to be something that everybody really enjoys to use. And I mean, we're even doing things to try to kind of, I guess, find a way to synthesize this stuff together a little bit. Like, one of the features that we have is you can, instantly overlay house systems, right? So if you're curious to see whole sign houses with Placidus, instead of arguing back and forth about which one's which, well, you could just look at both and see right there and just turn it off with the click of a button, on and off, very easily. So yeah, we're trying to do this in a way that is, we've thought of everybody. We're trying to do our best to make sure everyone loves it.
No one's being left behind.
Yeah, because it's so adaptable. It really doesn't matter what kind of astrology you do. Nechepso can be shaped to suit what it is you want it to be. So it can be all things to all people. It can be the really sort of complicated research-brained machine that someone like myself requires. But really, anyone who's using astrology software to practice astrology or to learn, it's great this way, because really no matter what you want, it's available to you. And if it isn't, we'll make it available to you. It's much easier for us to do that as well. That's the other side to this. Older astrology software is to be updated or modified or what have you. You would really wind up waiting a long time. With us, it's, something isn't there and we've got an angry email about it. It can probably be there in a week, in a matter of days, maybe a couple of weeks, if things are really tough or what have you. But it's the whole process is a lot more adaptable, and yeah, everything can happen a lot faster, and we really mean it. If there's anything in there that isn't there, we can put it there. So that's the other side to this as well.
One other thing I'd want to mention on this too is it's not even just for professional astrologers. All right. If you're not a professional practicing astrologer, you're still going to be able to get a lot from this software. We have an entire module which is designed for people who interact more casually with their charts and just kind of want a snapshot to see sort of what's going on. We're even going to have notifications available for when important things are happening in the charts of your family and friends and loved ones. So we'll kind of allow you to keep tabs on the astrology happening around you in a way that is very accessible and doesn't require someone to know anything about the fancy math of it. You
don't need to know who
I'm going to interrupt at this moment so we can take our first break, and then I'd like to talk about specific capabilities it has when we get back. All right, so hang in there, everyone.
Times TV.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again? empowermentunlimited.net.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. Our guests today are John Stuger, Patrick Watson, and Nick Dagan Best, who are talking to us about software that they have created called Nechepso. Right before the break, Patrick, you mentioned that your program can send out notices of things that are important events in the lives of people that you're tracking. You have a concept of circles. Is that what you're referring to here? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. Yeah, so circles is a feature that's within the personal module, which is geared more towards the more casual engager with astrology. And what it will allow you to do is be able to keep tabs in a way on the charts of the people close to you. Because sometimes we're not always looking at people's charts obsessively. Sometimes things can escape, our notice. And so maybe having an alert that tells you, your husband's having a Mars transit on the sun today. He might be a little testy today, potentially. Or knowing that two people are maybe having a stressful aspect being activated across their natal charts, knowing that there might be a greater possibility of tension or friction or conflict on a particular day. I think extending it beyond just sort of daily horoscope stuff, I think it sort of gets more into the nitty gritty of what things you'd want to look out for. I hope I'm not leaving anything out there, John.
The only thing I think that I would add to this is with the Nechepso, whenever you look at other astrology software, its general purpose is geared towards casting charts, saving charts, analyzing charts. And with our software, we wanted it to be more than just that. We wanted it to have a connection with the users. So yeah, the personal module, it's so right out the gate, Nechepso is the only software that's meant to connect with its user, right? And it does allow you to look at people in your circle, give you snapshots and everything else. And yeah, we wanted to develop software that was more than just, hey, let's take a look at this chart.
So let's talk a little bit about how you've integrated AI. I'm very interested in the research potential here because I do share some traits with you, Nick, and I will just get obsessed by a topic and want to run it through history, and it's kind of hard. Can you actually ask questions about specific aspects or events and run, or how does this work?
So I can give you a quick rundown. Essentially, the way that we're setting this up, it's not going to work like, I guess, what a lot of people would assume, like a Chat GPT style thing where you just go talk to this thing or whatever. We came up with a feature that we call Focus, because you got to understand that there's going to be a lot of moving parts in the software. There's the workspace where you do charts. There's the personal module. There's research. There's all these different things. So we came up with something called Focus. Essentially, what Focus is, any part of the software where you see a little lightning bolt in the corner, you just click it. And the AI knows, hey, this is what I'm talking to you about. So if you want to ask it about your Mars or someone else's Saturn or an aspect between two planets in a chart or anything where there's the lightning bolt, you click it and the AI will talk to you about whatever it is. And this is persistent throughout the entire software. We've built the AI to be an assistant to help you as you do whatever it is you need to do. And, we thought that was the most efficient way to allow the AI to know exactly what you want to talk to it about. Because, if you think about it, if you have a whole bunch of things open, how would the AI know, like, hey, what do you think of this? We made a way where, it's very user-friendly for people to interact with AI about anything that they want to interact with specifically.
What about, you mentioned you have a very large, an extremely large asteroid database.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the largest one.
Yeah, it's going to come loaded with 10,841 asteroids.
And one thing that we hope will make this a little less overwhelming is the ability to just search.
Curate.
Rather than having to browse, just search for the name that you're looking for, and you'll be able to sort of find it easily. And
also,
go ahead.
Reverse search. one of the ideas for the asteroid thing is because there is so many names. It's probably a long, like you can't go through. It's going to take a long time to go through almost 11,000 names. So one of the things that we're looking to add is a reverse search where you can select a planet or an angle or something like that, and it'll automatically tell you what you have within so many minutes of this position, rather than having to meticulously go through the asteroid list yourself.
There is one site online that you can see what's conjunct everything in a certain date or chart or whatever. So sounds like you have a variant of that. You also mentioned Nick's chart database. What is that?
Yeah, well, since I got my copy of Solar Fire in 1999, I've been pursuing my first passion, which is using astrology as a sort of calendar system to study history. It's what got me interested in astrology. I mean, horoscopic astrology was sort of adjacent to just my fascination with following transits of planets and looking at their configurations and their movement through signs over the course of history, the sort of the cyclical nature of that, and then the way big events like world wars or what have you have their own sort of era defined by planetary movements. So I've been assembling this database of files related to different subjects that I study. So these can be everything from the history of a given region. That is to say, going back before a place was a country, whether it's, France before it was France, or Russia before it was Russia, or the United States before it was that, looking at these timelines, but also using them to look at specific biographies of different people, political leaders, figures from the arts, musicians and authors and painters and filmmakers, and just a way to study astrology, all these different subjects broken down, a library of existing pre-made charts that people will be able to use to study and to do their own research, or to learn the chart examples if they're learning to do astrology and they want to keep practicing on different people's lives, and so there's all this material that I'm including in Nechepso. So Nechepso will come sort of pre-configured with a lot of this existing research that people can build on.
How many charts, Nick?
Oh, it's over 40,000. I don't know exactly. It's a lot of stuff, and it's always growing and being refined, and it's a lot of stuff.
Nick isn't just the human ephemeris; he's also the human encyclopedia.
Well, to my mind, they all go together. I've always thought of astrology as just being this way of knowing the world, of knowing us, knowing the history of humanity, and the things it can teach you, or and the way it can teach you these things is unparalleled. And I think Nechepso will really go a long way in helping people appreciate that element of astrology as well.
Nick, we are so much alike. It's almost scary. Okay.
Yeah, I know I'm not the only one out there. I'm not the only human ephemeris. I know that. It's always been kind of a joke. Like the idea of calling myself the human ephemeris is sort of like, Evel Knievel. In the 70s, they had this guy, the human fly, who would dress up as a superhero and climb walls and stuff. So it was always meant to be like a silly reference to like a circus geek or something like that, because it's a trick that seems amazing, but really, like, if you're a really dedicated astrologer, before you know it, you do become a human ephemeris. I think. I mean, Patrick is a human ephemeris. He's proven himself over and over. I've known others. The late great Monica Domino was certainly one, and I've met others. I think it's a fairly common practice for astrologers, but I just sort of made this silly tagline, and it kind of stuck. And of course, I leaned into it, as they say. So, but yeah, I have no doubt, Kathy, that you and I and many other astrologers I've met are really of a very similar cloth.
Now, speaking of research, we have a research module.
So
Yes, we do.
Talk about it.
I can discuss that. So our research module, there's a lot of research you can do in other software, But what we are doing is something that's never been done before. So we have 3 different branches of our research module. You have a regular branch, which would be similar to what you would expect in software like SolarFire or Sirius, something like that. We have a custom research branch of the module that allows you, let's say there's stuff you want to use that we didn't include and you want to be able to code it yourself. We're going to have Python notebooks built in where you can create your own research from scratch. But then I think the crown jewel is the academic research part of it, where we have a wizard essentially that walks you through the process of forming a hypothesis, setting up your control groups, getting all your citations, your sources together, creating a scientific study, running the study, then parsing the results, and then it helps you create an academic level research paper from abstract all the way to conclusion. And we'll, give you resources if you want to try to submit your paper for publication, which obviously with astrology might be difficult, but there are some places, right? But essentially the academic level research part of the research module it's really cool because it takes you from an idea, turns it into a hypothesis, and allows you to do real academic level research very, very easily. And we're hoping, people out there will discover some things with it.
We know that people might be a little intimidated sometimes by the kind of rigor that's needed in that sort of thing. And some astrologers aren't necessarily, that's maybe not their style, but we really hope that with the way we've set this up, that the AI will really hold your hand through the process and never let you feel sort of abandoned or something or by yourself. It's really going to help guide you.
Even without the AI though, right. It's going to be very, very descriptive. It'll tell you, depending on the type of math you want to perform to do your research, it'll give you, examples like, hey, this is probably best with this sort of thing and stuff like that. We're trying to make it as plain as day, very easy for anybody to be able to do this. And we're excited to see what kind of results we can get back.
The world's not going to know what hit it. All of a sudden, these academic journals are going to get all these really well-researched, well-thought-out astrology papers, and they're going to be like, "Where's this coming from?" So yeah, we're looking forward to stirring the pot a bit and causing a little chaos with that.
Now, there's a different level of research too that would be possible with the software, because we'll also have a resource module where if you just want to, it will basically be like a digital library.
Yeah.
Where you'll be able to just straight up read texts which are available in the public domain and from the authors that we get permission from, and that these will also be able to become part of the AI's data set and knowledge base. So then you'll be able to ask the AI a question about what did this author say about this, and then it will read the text, give you the answer right then and there. So you don't even have to look it up.
We should clarify this is an AI. This is not ChatGPT. This isn't something that scraped the web for answers and gives you some kind of weak, watered down, incorrect, hallucinating kind of response. This is our own model that we are training ourselves. So it's an AI that knows it, this material that we're teaching it. It didn't learn astrology just by scraping a bunch of stuff off the internet and
all the data is handwritten. That's one of earlier you asked Nick, hey, so what's your role in this? Nick is one of the people who's writing everything he knows about astrology into a format that the AI can be trained on, Patrick too. So, having, actual astrologers write out from memory their entire knowledge base, that's what the AI is being trained on. That's how it's learning astrology. There's no using books or copywritten materials. We're very open to this. We even asked ISAR to start a benchmark to verify other people creating AI with astrology to ensure that the data is not being used that's copywritten, and also verify that it's not hallucinating and it knows, what it's doing, because there are some things that have popped up that are very predatory in nature, trying to exploit astrology currently.
Really?
So,
Gee,
yeah.
no one's noticed that.
Yeah.
There are a couple more aspects that I want to touch on real briefly in our remaining time. Options for video consults. How does that work?
Well, we are looking to add a feature where it's really easy to put like OAuth in and have it to where if you want to do like connect your own Zoom or whatever else, but we want to actually have an internal sort of thing where you would be able to do all of your consultations directly within the software. You wouldn't need to pay Zoom or anybody else. It would just come with the software itself and be built in. That's one of the things we are looking to implement.
That would be game changing. Also, an open source atlas.
Oh yes, this is a big one.
So yeah, currently like SolarFire uses the ACS Atlas, and what we found very early on was, it's very difficult to get this historic time zone data, but there is a database for this, the IANA database, which is constantly updated with the most accurate information, and this is a very large entry barrier into astrological programming. Being able to put in a date, a time, and a location, and it accurately returning what the time zone was in that moment in time. So what we've decided to do, and we will release this, after we have Nechepso up and running, we have created an atlas ourselves, and we're going to totally open source it. So anybody who wants to do, astrology related software, this is not this will not be a barrier for them anymore. It'll be open source and free for everybody to use. And hopefully, some people put it to good use. And it's pretty robust, 12.5 million locations, basically everything in the world, mountains, cities, streams, you name it.
Yeah, if you want to stream, if you want to cast a chart by a stream,
by a lake or
down by the
want.
old mill stream.
Yeah, it's very, very robust.
Not the river, but the stream.
And it's linked directly to the IANA time zone database, so it is always, reflecting the most accurate time zone data available.
So two more things. What is Third House Social?
Oh, that's a big one we missed. So, like we said, we don't want this just to be a regular software. We want it to connect people. We actually built a social network entirely, and it's embedded directly into the software. A lot of people, they'll cast charts. They'll be like, I want to share my chart. We're going to have it to where you can just click the third house button in the workspace and directly share to the social network. Or if you want to use another social network, you'll have to download the image then. We're going to make it easy for Third House because it's our own thing, right? But, we want people to use Nechepso and connect with each other. We want the astrological community to have somewhere that they can go and connect and it be a positive, encouraging environment.
Right.
Not just
emphasis on the positive.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And that's up and running, right?
Yes. Well, the version that's up right now is our test version, right? And there are, as soon as Nechepso comes out, the whole thing's being redone, the front end, and we're adding tons of astrological features. You'll be able to, if you want, you go to someone's profile, if you want to share your natal chart, it'll show up on your profile. You can look at synastry with other people by going to their profile, just by clicking it. It's going to be really, really cool. So looking forward to doing that big upgrade. But it's really, really cool now. If you go check it out, you can, thirdhousesocial.com. But I just want people to know it's about to get way better very shortly.
Yeah.
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 You have moderators.
Yeah, we have a moderation system in place. Yes, where certain words, you can't say certain things, and we have systems in place and flags and everything, and people are notified in the event something crazy happens. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is, strictly speaking, it is open to the public, but it's also it's an astrology only chat group. So really, like if someone signs up just to troll, they'll stand out pretty quickly, you know,
Mhm.
because most people are there for a reason, and yeah, you know, with one thing in mind. So yeah, trolls, it won't be as easy for trolls or bots to just sort of roam around undetected. You know, it really is. It's like someone running onto the nude beach with clothes on. Everyone knows, like, you're not one of us. So yeah.
Well, I would add to our user agreement. Whenever you're going to sign up, we have a very clear, concise user agreement that says, if you know, basically, if you want to be negatives, just stay on Twitter. We're not going to tolerate it. We're not going to tolerate it. If you come stirring stuff up, if you just come to bash other people, tear people down, you will be banned. That's it. You know, that's our policy. Positive, or you know, just go somewhere else, man. We don't got time for that. We're trying to bring people together, not the opposite.
Yeah, and since it's, you know, since it is going to be the place for astrologers, anyone who's really serious about astrology doesn't want to find themselves banned, you know, from from the center of action, you know.
Right, especially since we have a lot of monetization opportunities planned, so that people will be able to enhance their business and expand their reach. And
Right.
you know, there's you know, we can't go into as much detail at this moment, but you know, we envision this as being kind of a one-stop shop, you know, for an astrologer wanting to get started as a professional astrologer.
So as we're having this conversation, it's just now entering the beta testing stage. Is that talk about the timeline of this rolling out?
Okay, so we are doing beta testing this month. And we're aiming to use an election to release the software on November 15th. We want to release it in sections, if you will, because, you know, we could put everything out, like every module out simultaneously, but I feel like it's best if, you know, we really kind of make sure that everything gets a really streamlined amount of focus so we can make every module the best possible thing that it could be. So we're going to start off with the personal and the workspace, which already right there, like I said, it's more than what other software offers, because, you know, not only can you do the workspace, which is what every other software is, but it has the personal element tied in, and it'll have resources that you can use as well. But then after that, we do the third house revamp. That's December. And then going into next year is when we add AI, and, you know, we kind of gradually roll out the rest of the modules going into May. But just like I said, 1.0 that we plan on coming out with should be, you know, better than what's already out there. And we're excited.
May, huh? There's some interesting astrological timing going on here. All
Gee,
right.
you think?
Who would have guessed it?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a rolling.
We haven't been paying attention, Kathy. We have no idea what you're talking about. It's going way over our heads.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
basically our goal is to have everything, all of the modules released the latest before NORWAC, which I'm going to be speaking at, the Northwest Astrological Conference. So yeah, that's kind of our goal, is to have everything done by then.
And we already got big plans after May too. So
yeah.
No
So
doubt. Well,
that's, yeah, there's a lot.
So for people to find out what we're talking about, there's a QR code over above Patrick's shoulder, and that'll take you directly to Nechepso.com. But for those, spell it out for them, please, somebody.
Oh, we should mention, while there's still time, that QR code will take you to Nechepso.com. We do still have a pre-purchase offer that is available, although the slots are narrowing down because there's a cap on it. When Nechepso is released, it's going to be available on a subscription model, $30 per month, $300 per year.
Basically,
But the pre-purchase offer is just a one-time payment of $400. The pre-purchaser owns their copy for lifetime, including all updates. And this gives us the capital we find useful to complete the software, and not have as much time to work on consultations as we normally would, and other things that we usually do to stir up revenue. So it gives us the capital we need to hire people that we need for specific tasks while developing the software, and other costs. And in exchange, the pre-purchaser gets to evade these subscription costs, which after 1 year you're already saving money. And also the pre-purchasers are those who have the option to participate in beta testing the software, which you mentioned it's going to begin in a couple of weeks. As soon as we get some things back from our designers, and from there we're going to move forward to release in November. So between now and November, this offer is still out there that people can take advantage of if they want to participate in beta testing, if they want to save a lot of money in the big picture, if they're going to be Nechepso users for years. That's still an option that they can look into.
So the way it's spelled is Nechepso.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right.
That's
Thank
what
you.
we're looking
And now
at.
we've run out of time. I really thank you guys for explaining what you've been up to. It sounds fascinating. And I wish you great success. And I think that Uranus and Gemini is going to really like you.
You think so too?
I think so too, yeah.
So thanks very much. And everybody hang in there. Visit my site. And also my forecasts are at omtime.com. So soon. Bye, everyone.